What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel, and it is finally here. MLB The Show 22 is on our doorstep, and that means a whole lot of new content here for the channel and for you guys that are watching. In today's video, what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the major changes to trade logic and things of that nature within franchise mode. One of the most important changes and updates to franchise mode that I think is going to improve the overall experience. I just started up a generic base franchise here as the Pirates. You guys can see I'm ready with my Pirates jersey. It's actually, if you guys can see, it's got my name on the back, which I think is pretty sweet. A gift from Cash and Checks 5923, who has a YouTube channel, so go check him out. Shout out to him. But nonetheless, perfect timing for this game as we were looking for some new content on the channel, and perfect timing for baseball season. So a lot of very interesting stuff happening here. With that being said, let's go ahead and break down some of what is very important with the trade logic and things of that nature within franchise mode. So the most important thing that has changed with trade logic and trading in general is the way that players are now valued within the game. That is something that is going to be absolutely massive here within the game, and it is something that is a major change from prior years. In prior years, and this is very important for you guys to know if you're going to be playing franchise mode on MLB The Show 22, value of players was pretty much completely determined based off of single year performance combined with their age, their overall, and their potential. And that was a pretty direct and pretty obvious way to determine player value. However, what they've done now is they have established a good base, is what they're calling it, for player value. And keep in mind, this is different than trade logic. So there were two basically general categories that were done different here. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to attack the actual player value system first, so they could establish a foundation for adjusting trade logic within the game. So this is a really exciting change for franchise mode, if you ask me, because it makes things much more realistic. And this is going to say that they're not going to forget about all those factors that we just talked about. They are still going to take into account that Brian Reynolds is an 84 overall B potential who played really well last year whenever we're talking about trades and value of these players. However, what they have done is they have shifted it to weight the performance over time for a player. So specifically, so that you guys know for your franchises, they are weighing 3-year WAR, which essentially means their performance over a 3-year span. The most recent 3-year span is going to be the highest impact on a player's value within the game. And this is very important to know, because whenever you're shaping your trades, whenever you're shaping your team, whenever you're trying to find value players, whenever you're trying to send players out for value in return, it's important to understand what is going to get that most value, or what's going to have your players valued at the most, and what might have other players for other teams valued high or valued low. This is going to change the basics of how trading works within the game, because now a player's 3-year span of work of their resume is going to impact their value within the game. And I love the fact that they introduced this as the focus and the plan of attack for adjusting the way franchise mode works, because this is something that other games need to take notice of. Players' performance over time is one of the most indicative measures of whether that player is good or not, and whether they have value or not within a league. And games like Madden, as I'm just going to note real quick, are so right now, right here and now heavy this year. What have you done for me recently heavy, that they're unrealistic in how heavily they weight recent performance. And so in this game, in MLB The Show 22, they are going to be heavily weighing a 3-year span of performance. Now, I would like to see it go beyond that and go further than that, but this is a fantastic start and a fantastic foundation for updating how we value players and how the game and the system sees players within MLB The Show. Now, the important thing to understand here is that they are making a clear distinction between player value and actual trade logic. They are not the same thing. And so there were also improvements made to trade logic. And so you're going to see general improvements that are just naturally going to occur based on teams valuing players correctly now and valuing players different. However, what they did do is for rebuilding teams, for example, they went in and they adjusted it so that a rebuilding team is going to put high-end players that are on expiring contracts on the trade block more. And there are other changes beyond that, but that is one of the most important ones, is that you'll see teams like the Pirates, for example, who have a tendency to develop good relief pitchers, that have a tendency to bring players in, but not re-sign them to long-term or big money contracts. You see those players go out the door to teams that are competitive. And so you will see players like that now be put up on the trade block more often based on the adjustments that they made to trade logic within the game. So you're going to see more realistic balance. And likewise, you're going to see the opposite of that, they said. You're going to see players that are prospects, high-end prospects for teams that are competing to win everything, put those prospects up on the board on the trade block. And so they're going to be looking to sell some of their top prospects, like a Dodgers, for example. Whenever they're winning in real life, they're looking to sell prospects to bring in players that are going to impact the here and now and give them a chance at a championship. And so what I've seen so far in simulating ahead a little bit that is actually the case. Simulating ahead here, there is a wider variety of players that are actually placed on the trade block. Now, the other thing that we'll get into and we'll touch on a little bit in this video, but we'll get into in other videos, is that the way that they've changed the way that players are valued is going to change the amount of really high-end players that are going to end up on the trade block. Teams are going to actually place a premium on some of the top players within the game, and they're not necessarily going to be out here on the trade block, and you're not going to be able to get all these players for super cheap. It's extremely important to know that teams are no longer going to sell away their top players for a bag of chips, and this is their own wording. They saw that, and that's not how it works in the MLB. And one of the most important statements from the developers over there is that they said they went out and did research on what actually happens in real life baseball and utilized that as a basis for their adjustments to CPU logic and the foundation of how players are actually valued. And I cannot say enough how important that is and how much value that has to somebody that tries to play games realistically and wants to see these games as a reflection of real life sports. I cannot compliment them enough for taking that step to go out and do that research and do their homework to understand what the actual game is all about and how to try to reflect that within MLB The Show. And that is something that other game developers, without calling anybody out specifically, need to do. They need to do more real life research and understand how the real life game works in order to adjust their game and make it be a better reflection of the real life sport that they're trying to represent. So compliments here to this development team for taking that step and openly saying that they're taking that step and trying to learn and trying to make this game as good as it can possibly be. And beyond that, they even stated that they're trying as best as they can to take into account community requests and community desires within franchise mode and other modes, and we are seeing that as a direct result of their efforts and their dedication to the players that are actually playing their game. The other effect that these changes are going to have is if you're in a franchise where you set CPU trades to be on, you're going to see far more realistic CPU trades across teams. So if a team wants to give up a high-end prospect, they're going to have to get a haul in return. Let's say a rebuilding team is trying to get rid of a 90+ overall superstar type of a player for that team. They're going to end up getting top prospects back in return, as opposed to what the wonky trade system was before that wasn't really valuing players the way that it probably should have been. So it's a very nice change to the game and to the trade system within the game. There's going to be a lot of improvement here that you guys are going to see as you go through your franchises. And one of the statements that they made is that it's going to make franchises last longer. So they did 30-year sims, and you're still seeing actual management from teams, actual trades, and things working properly 30 years down the line. So if you really want to do that deep of a franchise, you're going to be able to without the game being super unrealistic like it may have been in the past. And then the final thing that I wanted to address here in today's video is that players that were just signed in the offseason or just signed to a contract with a team are actually not going to be available for trade within the game, and they won't be traded by teams within the game. Something that is very basic and you know, probably should have been in the game before, but is a simple logic step to prevent somebody that was just signed in the offseason or just signed to a long-term contract from being traded away immediately. One of the things that I will be keeping up with is that they made pretty much guarantees whenever they revealed all of these changes to the game. Is, you know, when they were asked these questions, their answers were, this is not going to happen anymore. These types of things are not going to happen anymore. The responses weren't, well, you shouldn't see it as often, or it's not likely to happen. The answers were, we fixed it and it's not going to happen. So I'll be curious to see how that holds up over time as we go through franchises within this game, but nonetheless, it seems very positive. My major problem is just that they have not done connected franchise, and I know that they've made statements about the legacy code and having trouble working with those types of things. Guys over there at MLB, we need connected franchise. At least I need connected franchise. Maybe the player base for connected franchise isn't as big as it used to be, but that is my main game mode. That's what I like to play. I like to play with my friends, but I like to play with a franchise mode where we can all approach it from different angles, and we could go into the same franchise and we can do all these moves together. We can be in the same existing environment. And to be honest with you, in the past couple of years, when they haven't had connected franchise, what we do is we play franchises side by side with each other and try to parallel them, but it's still not connected, so you don't get the same experience. So it's unfortunate that that's still not here, but that is one of the things that we need to be working towards, and I really hope that they end up working towards in future years. And that will be reflected within my review of the game this year, but these positive changes to franchise mode, to the trade logic, the way that they value players as a foundation, those things will also be reflected in the review this year. And you know, hopefully you guys found this information in this video useful and informative for your franchise modes for MLB 22 if you do plan on playing it. And with all that being said, as always, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, comment down below as well what you guys think of the changes, what you guys would like to see updated, and all of that good stuff. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have a good one.